Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Sarah Gergel, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories from various minority communities of how COVID-19 impacted them. Today is September 29th, 2022, and there are 247 cases of COVID-19 in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County this week, which is an 11% decrease over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, for the comfort of each subject, we are not wearing masks today. DeTrice, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm DeTrice Fox. I am a library worker and currently a new branch manager at the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library's Sugar Creek branch.
Well, congratulations on your new role as branch manager. That's incredible. And we are so thankful for your time and willingness to share a bit of your story throughout the pandemic and even now, and how you felt through that time. Mm-hmm. I know at the beginning we did this activity called the hand map. Mm-hmm. Would you like to share some things that stood out to you, or whatever you want to share?
I would like to share that, I am a family person, so my family was both in my hand and outside of my hand. That is, I am a single woman, no children, never been married. And so, family is really, the thing that got me through COVID. It was good to have them. Although I live alone, we were very much in touch and connected during that time.
That's awesome. Does your family live in
the
area?
Yes, I was born and raised in Charlotte, and so all of my family, most of my family is here.
Stop it! You're a Charlotte native.
Yes, I'm a unicorn.
That's amazing. I am not a Charlotte native. I'm very new to the area, and a lot of people have told me how rare it is. So I get so excited when I meet Charlotte natives because you have so much to share. So can you tell me just a little bit about growing up in Charlotte? What were some things that you loved?
Well, I grew up on the west side of Charlotte.
Okay.
And I still live on the west side of Charlotte.
Okay.
It was very important to me that I find a home in that area because I was most familiar with it. And, it's just everything happens for me on the west side of Charlotte or in the surrounding municipalities such as Belmont and Gastonia. So they're on the west outside of Charlotte.
Okay.
So I do a lot of shopping and those types of things in that area. But I grew up here again on the west side of Charlotte, a single parent home. I have two sisters.
Okay.
One is a half sister. My baby sister is my full blooded sister. We're really close. We're like night and day.
Yeah.
Very much night and day, with attitudes and backgrounds and that type of thing. But I would do anything for her. Okay. She has my children. No. My niece and nephews are, I consider them my children. So, I'm very much involved in what they have going on in life. I try to be present for them, school, sports, that type of stuff. So it's very important.
That's amazing. Yeah. You're such a great auntie / mother auntie. And where do you fall in line? Are you the oldest or are you in the middle?
I am the oldest child and the oldest grandchild. Okay. So I'm like the leader. Yeah. I'm the person. I'm the glue. I make sure everything happens, that we're getting together regularly. One of the things that I failed to mention is that growing up, my grandmother would cook Sunday dinner every Sunday, and she would cook every Wednesday. So my family got together quite often.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And in this time, it's very rare. Yeah. It is, because we get so consumed with work and busyness and schedules, and so I just love that family connection and community. It's really beautiful. So as, growing up the oldest, and clearly you have incredible leadership skills in your professional life.
They
and your
always say that
life.
the oldest child is like the one that's like the leader.
Yeah.
So I never believed it until I got into this role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet it came really natural to you because you kind of, as the oldest, you get to boss your younger siblings around a little bit, and it's a little nicer. I feel like when you're in a leadership role, sometimes you're like a parent of just teaching and guiding those under you.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's awesome. So in terms of your experience with COVID, can you kind of share a little bit? You worked in the library system when the pandemic came, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about your experience?
Yes, I've been with the library since 2005, so it was very much a shock when we got the email about we're going to be closed for 2 weeks. And I was like, what am I going to do for 2 weeks? How am I going to get paid? It was just one of those things. And I, was eager to work because, again, I live alone. And so it was very important to me that I was able to keep busy during that time. One of the things that I did regularly was reach out to my supervisor about, hey, is there any work I can do? What can I do, during this 2 weeks? And then the more it got extended, it was very, it was like, okay, maybe a little bit of anxiety about having to stay a little while because it was very scary because the news really, got to me like, I'm scared. I wouldn't even walk around my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, it's airborne. I'm going to get it. I'm going to stay in the house. So, just being home in the house, finally, they were able to give me some work to do, which was helpful.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that my family created everybody has iPads and iPhones. Mm-hmm. So we were able to create a family FaceTime.
Wow.
So we talked for hours every day.
That's amazing.
Yes. Everybody was in their respective homes, and we would just spend all day chatting. Sometimes I take a break, say, I'll call you back later. And then like maybe about an hour later, we get on the line for another 4 hours together. And so my friends also did the same thing. But one of the things that we used, the platforms that we used, it was called Marco Polo.
Okay.
So you could send videos. Yeah. So we had a group video chat. And we would talk all day as well.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that technology can make you, even though we are isolated and at that time very isolated, we can still be connected to those we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really the saving grace for me, was being able to connect with everyone. Even though there was no one there physically in my space, I felt them. I felt their presence because of the fact that I was able to, talk to them regularly.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Man, did you do any fun projects around the house?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I really could have, considering I was going crazy at the time, but I did not. I should have, but I did not. So,
okay, that is okay. How about the library? Were there a lot of restrictions at that time? Like, I know you had to wear masks, and what did that look like? Was there a time where they would only let one person in the building?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So the library was closed from March 17th until about June 5th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Completely shut down.
Completely shut down.
Wow.
Yes. And so when we went back into the building, there were really strict protocols for how to deal with things. Customers could come in one at a time. And over time, services increased, but it was still very limited for customers. It was very difficult going back into the building because, everybody's still up in arms about, what is this? It's still killing people. Why are we back in the building? Why are we at work? And no matter how many precautions they took to make sure that we were all safe, it was still very, very hard to, jump back into working. Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, you're juggling your personal life, work life, and then all of the unknown of the pandemic. It was a very scary time for a lot of people. That unknown factor of how does it spread or how will it impact me? I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, we were of course we have shared computers at service points, so every time someone left the computer, it was just clean it up with sanitizer and cleaner, and it was very tedious.
Yeah, I bet. And having to remind yourself to do that, I had to remind myself, don't forget your masks, have masks with you 24/7. It was at first it was so hard to get into that group. But totally. What branch were you working at that time?
So at the time, I was at the main library.
Okay.
And I had been at the main library for 5 years at the time. So, going back in, it was one of the largest libraries that we had at the time. And, we served a community of, transient people, homeless people, which we call, our day customers. A lot of corporate business people that worked uptown. Well, at the time, because everything was still shut down. We didn't see as many people that worked in the offices come in to pick up their library books. So, uptown became a ghost town.
Really?
Yeah, it was very much a ghost town when we came back to work.
Wow.
Whereas prior to the pandemic, in my park, where I would park, it would be hard to find parking in the mornings. It was so easy. The lots were so empty.
Wow.
It was you free for all, park anywhere. So,
wow. Yeah. That's crazy now. I mean, I work in uptown, and so it's definitely changed.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel coming out of the pandemic? I mean, we still definitely deal with COVID. It's not gone. I don't think it will ever be gone. It will still impact our lives. But the restrictions have been lifted for some time now, and programming has shifted towards more in-person or hybrid. How has that impacted you? How are those changes?
Well, in the beginning, I was very cautious. It was just okay, stay away from me. Or I see or somebody start coughing, and it's just I want to go over here. So, I went through that period for a very long time, and it was just, maybe within the past year or so, I'm more comfortable being around people unmasked and those types of things. And I don't keep masks in my car like I used to. Yeah. So I feel much more comfortable with people. I think for me, COVID is the common cold now.
Okay.
That's the way I think of it. Of course, now with staff, you have to deal with the attestation that the library has. You have to be out of work for 5 days before you can return to work. That type of thing is still happening. And of course, with the common cold, you didn't have to do that. But it's different. Yeah. But, I think that is something very necessary considering, this is something that killed people. Yes. A lot of people. Yes. So that's the scary part. And I think that the different variations of the virus kind of ease people's, apprehension about being around people and, possibly being exposed because it's not killing people the way it was in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And so now that you're in this new role at Sugar Creek as branch manager, and a lot of your programming have gone to be open more to in-person, how is that? How do you see the changes so far?
The changes are good. Of course, people are welcome or encouraged to wear their mask. I think that's a lot for liability purposes. Hey, you can wear a mask if you want to, but you don't have to. Yeah. I think that has made people more comfortable. I also think that people are tired of Zoom. Yes. So, we have been seeing, whereas in the middle of the pandemic, we had, monumental numbers for programs.
Yeah.
It was good to see people. They wanted to create community in programming. And so Zoom was one of the platforms that helped us create that community for people. But now that we're moving back in person, we're still offering virtual programs for people that aren't comfortable, or it's not even that they're not comfortable, it's that they have comfortable coming to the building, is that they're comfortable with not having to leave their homes to attend programming. And then some people, they just don't show up because it's just like they have Zoom fatigue. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of dealing with that, and then in-person programs, especially with what I've noticed with our story times. Okay. The daycares would usually bring their classes here, but now they don't. We had to shift back to doing virtual story times on Tuesdays. Really? Because the daycare directors wouldn't bring the kids to the library. They're like, hey, we don't have to try to transport these kids anywhere when we can just, do story time from here. Just send us the Zoom link. So we were dealing with that.
I know it can be hard with a limited staff. Mm-hmm. How has that been? Are you guys able to get into the community a little bit and do programming like out there, or is it more you stay here?
Yeah, we are still very much in the community. That's one of our lifelines for programming is getting out there and meeting people where they are. Yeah. So that hasn't changed. It was like that before the pandemic, and it's still like that. That's awesome. During the pandemic, of course, people were like, they didn't have the tools that they needed to be able to offer the outreach types of programs virtually. But now I think that we are at a place where people have the tools now, and they can access outreach opportunities virtually, but they can also have us in their space again. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's important.
That's so important. Yeah. It's amazing to hear. And in your own personal life with your nieces and nephews and being so involved, have they been able to start sports again or do extracurricular activities?
Absolutely. My niece, she was doing cheerleading, but now she's more into student government. Okay. So she's in 7th, 8th grade. Okay. I can't remember which. Yeah, one of those. She's in one of those grades, and she's into student government, and so she wants to be a class representative. So she's working on that. My nephew, who is 6, he plays 6U football. So he's about to wrap up his fall season soon. But, just being able to see them. And I have another niece. She runs track. Okay. And another nephew. And I don't think he's gotten into anything yet, but it's coming. I know it is. Yeah. So. That's awesome. I have a pretty large handful of nieces and nephews as well, and 2 of them are in football. And I'm telling you, I get a text every other day. I hurt my shoulder. I broke my leg, or something like that. I'm like, kid, why are you doing this to yourself? Right. Yeah. But they love it. They do. They really do. Yes. So that's great. That's great, DeTrice. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of what do you think you gained from your pandemic experience over the last 2-3 years? Oh my gosh, I have gained a better sense of identity because one of the things that the pandemic led me to is to therapy. Okay. And so it's not that I was going through anything strenuous or anything like that. I think that the solitude kind of brought up some internal things and things that I felt like I needed to discuss with someone. Yeah. And so I was able to, start therapy during the pandemic. I had never been to therapy before, so that was very new. Okay. I took all the tools that were provided in therapy and I used them, which kind of helped me really create a better sense of identity. In addition to, I reconnected with who is now the love of my life.
Stop it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. One of my pedicures, she says, "Oh, you found that COVID love."
I love it.
Yeah,
that is so
of the things that
amazing.
I've gained, those two things are most important for me. Yeah.
So speaking of the love of your life, are you guys able to go out now? Or how has that been?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of traveling. Recently we came back from Houston during the pandemic, or not during, but kind of towards. It's still happening.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. But it was like still lots of restrictions. We took a few trips during that time. So, just doing a lot of traveling and enjoying each other's company. So,
that's so great to hear. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. As you've transitioned through all of that, is there something that specifically shaped you as a person, like an experience or something that was like really touching throughout the last 2 or 3 years?
Something that shaped my experience. Again, just,
We talked about therapy, so that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just being able to remain connected to the people that are most important to me and reconnect with people from my past that have like really made a difference in like what my future will look like.
Yeah.
That has been something that really sits with me. I'm, happy to still have all my family. Yes. Nobody was, seriously, hurt or put down by COVID. So, I'm just grateful for that. Yeah. And, gratitude, like I think one of the things that helped me get through the pandemic was, being grateful and practicing gratitude every day.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, in my own life, as I've encountered my own experience with COVID, the fear of the unknown really can take over. And
absolutely.
You have to really just process and be like, there are things to be grateful about, and we are resilient as humanity, and the pandemic impacted the world, but we are stronger and we are better for it, I think, in a lot of ways. So that's incredible. With your family, have you guys been able to reconnect in person and do those family dinners?
Yeah, absolutely. We, I think it was the Mother's Day of 2021, we started back getting together. Okay. So, we started, having, my grandmother does not cook on Sundays anymore.
No.
But she does make sure that we get together every Wednesday for dinner.
Awesome.
So,
I love those traditions.
Yeah.
They're so, especially during that time of the pandemic where we had to slow down and kind of take a look at our lives a little deeper because of the isolation and solitude. I feel like it really makes you appreciate those in your life, like family and friends, and that's amazing, DeTrice.
Yeah.
So, to respect your time, I'm just going to follow up with one last question. Do you have any additional stories or experiences that you would like to share?
Nothing that really comes to mind.
That's okay.
Yeah, I would have to think really deeply.
That's great.
Yeah.
I so appreciate your time today, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.